Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. It's a scandal labelled the worst in the history of the NHS. Today, a public inquiry has heard how school children who were given blood products infected with HIV were handed effective death sentences and left to tell their parents they weren't expected to survive more than a year or two. The inquiry into how tens of thousands of people were given contaminated blood in the 70s and 80s has been hearing harrowing evidence from former pupils who attended a boarding school for physically disabled children in Hampshire. From 1974 to 1987, more than 120 children at Treloar College were treated for haemophilia, a serious bleeding disorder, by the medical team at an NHS unit on the site. At least 72 children later died, some from the same family, after being given a new drug that was contaminated with HIV and viral hepatitis. Across the UK, it's estimated more than 30,000 people were infected by contaminated blood and blood products, and at least 3,000 people died as a result. Our health editor Hugh Pym reports.
What will they do with it?
They are among the survivors, but they've lost at least 72 former schoolmates because of treatment with tainted blood products. Today, some living with HIV and hepatitis C gathered wearing their campaign ties at the inquiry, with a week of evidence ahead on what happened at Treloar College in Hampshire. Gary joined the school at the age of 10 and soon was being treated for his haemophilia with a blood-clotting agent known as factor VIII. Later, aged 18, he and some others were called in by a doctor and told they'd been infected with HIV.
He said, we don't know a lot about it, and the outlook's not good. We can't guarantee that you'd be sort of alive in a couple of years, and that was it, really.
Treloar College, shown in this 1970s film, was a boarding school with specialist NHS haemophilia treatment provided at the site. A statement from the school said it was completely supportive of the campaign for justice by former pupils after they were harmed at the NHS clinic. Of more than 100 pupils since the mid-1970s, only about a quarter are still alive.
I have guilt, still being here. It's stigma, losing 72 friends, school friends, who you've known since you were that high. So that's been difficult. I think I'm an angry old man now.
At the inquiry, bottles with messages for lost loved ones are on display. Victims and families have long argued there was an official cover-up. Contaminated blood products were imported, some made from plasma from donors who were paid, including prisoners. The inquiry will soon be hearing from some of those who were senior health officials and other key decision makers back in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Kenneth Clarke, who was a health minister for some of that time, will also give evidence. But this week the focus is very much on the heart-rending Treloar saga.
Our parents and us were blissfully unaware of the risks that were being taken with our young lives and of the cruel tragedy that was about to unfold. I would like to thank my family for their support and love through the years. And finally, the comradeship and strength of the remaining Treloar survivors. Without them, I would not have been able to do this today.
Oh, we can talk to Hugh now. Hugh, that testimony is just heartbreaking when you hear it. There's going to be more of that. And then what comes next for this inquiry?
Yes, Fiona, this inquiry's been running for more than 2 years now, and we've heard some really raw and emotional testimony. And once again today, with that devastating story of what happened at Treloar College. Boys being told there was a wonderful new treatment for their haemophilia, and it worked, it stopped the bleeding, more or less, but then a few years later to be called in and told, by the way, thanks to that NHS treatment, you've contracted a virus and you might only live a year or two. It does seem particularly brutal and heartless. And these brave people giving evidence today, and others, and campaigners, they really want to get to the truth, and they're relying on this inquiry to deliver that. So we do have senior NHS and health officials and ministers from that time back in the 1980s particularly, who will be giving evidence soon, and there'll be a lot of questions to be asked of what was known at the time. Was there any sort of cover-up going on? There's particular anger amongst campaigners that other countries who were affected by all this as well with these blood products have paid out compensation, Canada and Ireland, for example, whereas the UK government, this was all pre-devolution, the UK government has not really accepted any liability as of now. But ministers have now said, depending on the outcome of this inquiry, maybe a year or so away, compensation, if it's recommended, will be paid.
Hugh, thank you.